In this video, we're going to talk about the bad neighborhoods in Gig.Harbor, Washington. That's right, I said bad neighborhoods. You don't hear that very often about Gig.Harbor, and we're going to get started on this video right now. Hey everybody, my name is Darren Rivers and I'm the Northwest Realtor, and welcome to Living in Gig.Harbor. If you're new to this channel, why don't you hit that subscribe button and tap that little bell so you can get all your notifications of my weekly updates. This channel is to teach you everything there is to know about Gig.Harbor. So if you're either from this area and you want to learn more about it, or if you're thinking about maybe moving here and you want to see what this place is all about, that's what this channel is all for. So my information is going to go right up here now. You know, give me a call, send me a text, put a little comment in the comment section of this video, share it with somebody if you like. And let's get started on what we're going to go over today right here. Let's dive right into this and talk about the bad neighborhoods of Gig.Harbor versus the good neighborhoods of Gig.Harbor, the safety around here, things of that nature. So let's just make a point right now. There's really no bad neighborhoods in Gig.Harbor. This is a very overall safe community. It's one of the attractive features of the community is it's just clean, it's nice, people feel secure. It's just a very pleasant place to live. So while this video is going to be about the bad neighborhoods or some of the crime issues that go on here, in the grand scheme of things, this is a very, very safe place to live. I've raised my kids here. I was very comfortable with my family, you know, being around the community, going walks, you know, whatever. I was never concerned about that at all. So let's start with that. Overall, this is a safe place. But let's talk about some stats here. And there are some things in my research that were actually pretty surprising to me. So let's start with violent crime. Okay, violent crime is very minimal here. It's almost non-existent, which is great. Now where we aren't doing so well is on the petty crime, kind of the theft sort of stuff. So I have a chart up here behind me, not a chart, just a line item of things. And I'm gonna put my glasses on so I can see this a little bit better. And we'll go over this with you, okay? So up here at the top, it talks about total crime, and violent crime is this line and up, okay? So they have murder, rape, robbery, and assault. These are all things that actually happen. Obviously, two people is not like stealing, shoplifting, right? This is a violent crime upon a person. This comes from 2020 FBI statistics, and it was published in September of 2021, okay? Murder, 0, none. So in Gig.Harbor, per every 100,000 people, obviously 0. Washington State, the murder per 100,000 people is 3.9. That's the statistic. And nationwide, it's 6.5. So Washington State as a whole is about half of the nationwide stats. And here in Gig.Harbor, there was none. Rape, 0. You can see that 34.8 people out of every 100,000 in Washington State, 38.4 people out of every 100,000 in nationwide. So, right, okay, robbery. This is where somebody actually comes up to you and robs you. So whether they threaten you, pull a weapon on you, whatever it may be, it's directly to you. In 2020, there was 5 incidents of that in Gig.Harbor that were reported, okay? So per 100,000 people, because we have a lot less than 100,000 people here, that would be 44.6 people per 100,000, compared to the state is 67.4, and nationwide is 73.9. So again, much lower. Gig.Harbor only 5 reported cases in all of 2020, so quite low. Now, obviously it happened a few times, but it's certainly not the norm. And then assault, you know, somebody gets beat up, something like that, that happened 13 times. Compared, so if you grow the population to 100,000, that would be 115 people versus Washington State is 187. The nation is almost 280 people. So as you can see, violent crime, we have much lower statistics than the rest of the state and certainly the rest of the country. Now let's go over into the personal property type stuff. So burglary, theft, vehicle theft, things like that. So this is stuff that happens to you, but not directly to you, right? And this is where our stats are not as good. And I have a couple theories as to why, and we'll get into this in a little bit. So burglary, there was 71 incidences of that. That is literally like somebody breaking in to your property, your house, things like that. That's what burglary stands for. It happened 71 times in 2020. If you make our population 100,000, that would have been 633. That's higher than the state average of 522 and higher than the nationwide average of only 314 per 100,000 people. So statistically, we have a higher rate of that. My theory behind that is this is a nice community, right? There's nice houses here. People are coming. I mean, where are you going to go steal stuff? You're going to go to the nice areas to get it. So that sort of makes sense. Theft, 350 reported cases in all of 2020. Again, if we had 100,000 people, that would equate to just over 3,000. And these are significantly higher, 1,800 in Washington state, nearly 1,400 nationwide. So we have a higher rate of that. And then vehicle theft happened 29 times, reported 29 vehicles stolen in 2020. If we had 100,000 people population, that would equate to 258 people being affected by it. Now that's under the Washington state average of 356, and the nationwide average is right in line with us, 246. So 258 to 246, we're right in line with the national average. So not as much. So property crime, we're higher than our surrounding areas and nationwide stats, but violent crime, we're extremely low. So that's why, way up here, if you can see that D rating, we have a D rating on the crime, but it's all because of this petty theft stuff, not anything violent. Okay, so I don't need my glasses for some of these things. And these are just kind of to reiterate some of the stuff that I just talked about, okay? So this is a graph and it shows from the year 2000 all the way through 2019. Okay, it's the best information that I could find. Anyway, it just wasn't updated into the present day, but it kind of shows the trends, okay? So the black line is nationwide, blue line is Washington state, and then the orange squiggly line is Gig.Harbor itself. And this is property crime, not violent crime, property crime. And you can see per 100,000 people, we have a higher ratio overall of the property crime. So diving into the property crime aspect a little bit, this is the burglary rate. Gosh, tongue twister there. Anyway, so this is just like actually somebody breaking into your property, okay? And we've had our spikes over the years, but currently, right now, we're all very much national average, right? I mean, Washington state, national average, Gig.Harbor, we're all pretty much right there. So there's nothing very remarkable. I'm not sure what all these huge spikes are. I realize Gig.Harbor is a fairly small population, so if there's like an uptick of incidents over like a little period of time, it'll really affect our graph because it's just per capita, it's a much more extreme. So let's say somebody comes into town and they're on a string of breaking into houses and they do it for a week or so, you get a huge spike because per capita, it's affecting the population greatly when it's really only a couple incidences that cause these spikes up or down one way or the other. So take that for what it's worth, but we're right there in the national average with everybody else. Okay, so this one behind me now is car theft, okay? And again, a couple extreme spikes, Gig.Harbor, smaller population, a couple occurrences here or there are gonna really affect our graph when it comes to per capita per 100,000 people. So anyway, as of late, we're actually a little bit below the national average and the state average. So, but I'll tell you where the car theft occurs. I've heard of a couple times where it's out of people's driveways and things, but the biggest thing is we have a park and ride called Purdy Park and Ride. And you're not supposed to park there overnight, but oftentimes people do. There's a shuttle that comes there and takes people to the airport. So people just like, oh, I'll just leave my car here for 3 or 4 days. This happened to a personal friend of mine just a few days ago. He came back from the airport. He, of course, left his car there for a few days, and lo and behold, it was gone. And called the sheriff's office, and they told him that basically this is through a friend of mine who had his car stolen there. The sheriff's office told him that a car is stolen out of there about once a day. Now, you know, the statistic that I showed you earlier, where in 2020 there are 29 reported car thefts. I don't know how those numbers add up, because if a car is stolen every day, that's 365 days in a year. You know, that doesn't make sense at all. So maybe that was an exaggeration, but it's a common place. Another common place where cars are stolen is at like the beginning of the Cushman Trail. People park their car to go on a bike ride or go on a jog up and down the trail. And that's where things happen there. That's where a lot of break-ins happen also. And if you think about it, it makes sense as to why you park your car, you take minimal belongings because you're gonna go for a jog. If somebody's watching you and you park your car and you take off on a run, they know you're not coming back anytime in the next couple minutes. It's just prime place for them to break in, rummage through your stuff, to see if they can find your wallet hidden underneath your floor mat, something like that. So that's where and there's, you know, you go into these parking lots and you see glass on the ground all the time because they break a window really quick, pop in there, they're in and out in 35, 40 seconds with whatever they could steal out of your car. So they're not necessarily always taking your car, but there's break-ins in your car. Maybe that's what that police officer was talking about, that there's some sort of incident nearly every day, maybe not a vehicle stolen every day. So anyway, pretty park and ride, a lot of car theft and break-ins, and then, you know, parking lots of jogging trails, the Cushman Trail, which is a great trail, by the way. But parking your car there, you know, cars have been broken into. It just kind of happens, unfortunately. Okay, the last graph I'm showing up here of the property crime aspect of things is larceny, okay? So nationwide average, Washington state average, Gig.Harbor average. Larceny, gosh, I'm having a hard time pronouncing things today, is basically just theft, okay? It's not the breaking and entering part, it's just stealing stuff. So I have a couple theories as to why this is higher here. One, Gig.Harbor is nice. People tend to have nicer things, so people come here to steal nicer things. Also, I think that like shoplifting and stuff falls into this, and I kind of wonder, just me thinking out loud, if Gig.Harbor and the stores here and things like that report these more often than if you go to areas where it's more commonplace, right? So Tacoma has a reputation of have a higher crime rate. A lot more of this stuff supposedly goes on. And I wonder if they just don't report it because it just happens so much and people get away with it and they just don't report it. So I kind of wonder if that's part of why our rate is so much higher on this is it's reported here and not reported in other parts of the country or nearby areas. And then the other thing that totally makes sense is if you're going to go steal something, go to a nice neighborhood to steal it, right? Why go to the projects to steal something? Because you're probably not going to be stealing anything really nice. And if you get caught there in the projects, you might get shot. Whereas here, there's no violent crime. You know, I mean, it's just a more passive kind of, it's just a nice area. So, you probably wouldn't run into that resistance. This probably isn't good. I might be giving tips to the burglars here, but hopefully they're not here on YouTube showing where to go or whatnot. So how about this? I'm going to stop talking on this piece and we're going to move on to other areas. Okay, so this will be the last little graph I show you, and this is violent crime. And this just reiterates what we talked about earlier as far as Gig.Harbor being very low on the scale of violent crime. So again, this is over 20 years or virtually 20 years worth of time. And we've had a spike in here in the middle, which is about 2010. So that tells me there's maybe one or two things that happened that year that really drove our occurrence per 100,000 way up, right? It doesn't take much to affect it. If we have a small population, one event could really create a thing here. But anyway, we're way down here. So a colleague of mine just walked in the door. So what's up, Juan? Anyway, so that's our stats on violent crime here in Gig.Harbor. Super, super, super low. Just doesn't really happen very much. So let's talk about where all these places are. Like, where are the bad neighborhoods of Gig.Harbor versus where are the good neighborhoods of Gig.Harbor? And realize I really got to stress this. There are no bad areas in Gig.Harbor. This is a very safe, very clean, nice place to live. It's not like, you know, some of the bigger cities, Tacoma or Seattle or things like that, where, you know, like, oh, do I want to go to that side of the neighborhood or do I need to be on this side of the neighborhood? It doesn't matter here. You're fine. But this graph does statistically show where more of these things take place. And I was really surprised by this, okay, or this map, I should say. So for some reason, Key Peninsula has a bad reputation, okay? So Key Peninsula is right over here. You go up through Gig.Harbor, you go over the Pretty Bridge, and then you're over into what starts on the Key Peninsula. But this is like Lake Bay and Vaughan and a place called Wana. These are all just little neighborhoods. Some of this has Gig.Harbor mailing address, you know, to about here or so. But it's still all kind of considered Gig.Harbor. So anyway, this has had a really bad reputation over the years. And it's kind of funny because on the rankings, Vaughan is number 4, right? Wana is number 6. They're very much in the middle. Okay, right there in the middle. The reason it had a bad reputation before is it's a little more run down. It's a little more rural. Back in the day, there was rumors of like mobile meth labs, you know, people in motorhomes making meth when meth was really on its way up and across the country and stuff. Now realize all along the water here and stuff, I mean, you have $1 million homes. You have spectacular homes. There's some really nice neighborhoods. But every once in a while you can find little pockets of where it's just a little rougher, you know, maybe people have a few cars out in their front yards and the grass growing up through them and, you know, and things like that. You get a little bit more of that out here than anywhere in the main heart of Gig.Harbor. But crime-wise, compared to the rest of Gig.Harbor, it's right in the middle. It's really unremarkable one way or the other. Which means statistically compared to Washington State or nationwide for that matter, it doesn't exist here. There's no violent crime. There's very little petty theft. There's nothing. It has a much worse reputation than what the map is showing, okay? The nicest area, Forest Beach, Sunrise Beach, that's all right along here. That's with the lowest crime rate. And per Gig.Harbor, when you're comparing just in Gig.Harbor, Woolachit is the worst. And Woolachit is right here. And I have a theory as to why. Remember how we have very low violent crime, but we have higher theft? Well, right here in Woolachit is Uptown, which is Gig.Harbor's mall area. It's like an outdoor mall, lots of shopping, things like that. It is one of the main retail shopping areas, or it is the only real retail shopping area in Gig.Harbor. You know, we have other areas up here with Costco and Target and things like that. But as far as going to like designer clothing stores and purse stores and things like that, that is in Uptown, which is in Woolachit. Well, where do people go to shoplift? They go to the mall type areas, and this is our mall. So my theory is why this is a higher crime rate is because of all the retail that they have there and, you know, the shoplifting that takes place. If you notice the other area right here, it's dark also, is downtown Gig.Harbor. That's where they have all the boutiques, all the little mom and pop antique stores, a lot of shops down there. So it's the shopping areas that have the higher crime rate because that's where, you know, like I said, the shoplifting and the theft comes in. So I thought that was a really interesting map and I was really surprised. I thought this was going to be the highest crime area. It's right here and it's downtown. It's where the shopping is. So yeah, so that is the map of the safest neighborhoods in Gig.Harbor, ranking all the way down to number 10. The worst is Woolachit. Again, I cannot reiterate enough though. Worst is just in relation to the rest of Gig.Harbor. In relation to Tacoma, Bremerton, Seattle, this is a cakewalk. This is a great place to live. So what I want you to get from this video really is, yes, you have to worry about some petty theft stuff. Yes, you know, think about where you might park your car. Don't leave your wallet in your center console, things like that. But as far as safety, you couldn't ask for a better place. This is a fantastic, safe environment to live in. and I'd welcome a challenge from anybody on that one. Well, that pretty much sums it up. We talked about the bad areas of Gig.Harbor, which there really aren't any. Talked about, the crime that goes on here, the violent crime, which is almost non-existent, and then the property crime, which definitely does exist here, and we have a higher statistic behind that just because it's a nice area. So the bad people come here to steal the stuff, which is unfortunate, but it happens. But as far as safety, this is really a wonderful community. And no matter where you live, you're going to run into some of these issues to an extent, one way or the other. I just wanted to be as transparent as possible as to what the research I found says and what you could probably experience here. This is all my information right here. Give me a call. Send me an email, put a little comment in the section. Make sure, again, you subscribe to this channel. This is Living in Gig Harbor, Washington, and I will see you on the next episode.